Hi, everyone. I'm Marina Kukla here today to talk about cognitive behavioral therapy for work success, CBTw session 11, managing work success. So you'll start with your introductory elements, your work check-in for everyone present. You'll do the take-home review from session 10, which is to work with accepting and responding to feedback more effectively, and how that went during the week, trying to practice that. If no one seems to have done the homework, then you might open the floor for a very brief discussion on this and maybe how it's worked in the past or things they would like to work on moving forward. And then you'll do your agenda review for session 11, which is these 3 bullet points here, defining what work success means for each individual, considering the factors needed for work success, thinking more deeply about capabilities and limitations related to work. And then also we will address work motivation this week using our 4A's model. So we start with sort of factors and some general thoughts to establish a baseline about what things we sort of need to be successful at work. We have sort of this list of components that we may need, we may not, but these are some of the general ones. You need to be able to do the job. You need to have a set of skills and abilities, self-confidence, ability to manage yourself, like managing stress and physical and mental health, realistic self-appraisal, which we talked about last week, personal motivation, and then we have to actually actively manage work success, which is what we're talking about in sessions 11 and 12. So we start with this question to think about and discuss that you can openly have a conversation amongst the group. What does it mean to you to be successful at work, and how would you know if you are successful? I would suggest taking a couple minutes and having those who have their manuals with them write in this space here. For those that don't have their manuals, just allowing them some quiet time to sit and reflect. I wouldn't take more than a couple minutes here because we have a lot of content to deliver this week. Then having an open discussion and allowing veterans present an opportunity to share with the group. I would leave it open and give everybody an opportunity to share something if they want, or they don't have to, but just so that they have that opportunity if they would like to take it. And so success usually relates to a person's work goal, but not always. It might just relate to just keeping a job or remaining employed over time or something else that's not specific to any one goal. For a lot of people, it is specific. It could be getting a job in a certain field or advancing in a certain career field or something else. And then we move on to realistic self-appraisal. So this is an evaluation of what we can and can't do well. And so we talk about what capabilities and limitations are, and we provide some examples here of these on page 102. And so then you would, as a group, go through and read these together. And then we have a question to think about and discuss: what are my capabilities and limitations related to work? And how do I currently manage these? Do I manage these well? Do I struggle? Is that something I want to work on? So this is another place where you'd take a couple minutes, you'd allow veterans time to sit and write in their manuals. We want each person to actually write their own response. So even if they don't have their manuals with them, just allowing them time to sit and think and then be able to share those. So you'd take a couple minutes, you'd allow people time to write these, then you'd come back together as a group, you'd open the floor and allow people an opportunity to talk about theirs. And again, like the last one, I would allow everyone some opportunity to be able to do that. So, this is really important as we move forward. Next week, we're going to do a work success plan for each individual. And so this is important that we kind of lay the groundwork for what it is that we can capitalize on, our capabilities, and what limitations or other factors we might need to manage or address. Then on page 104, we have another narrative exercise, which is considering the right job fit. So in the context of our capabilities and limitations regarding work, what is the right job fit for us? So this is sort of pulling together everything we've talked about up until this point. And a lot of times people have already thought about this. They may think about, what type of work setting would best fit them, what type of work setting would best help them lead to success, and what is it that they're most interested in doing. So for people who are not working, this is just sort of what would an ideal job look like for you. And then for those who are working, do you have a good fit at your current job? If you don't have a good fit, what would make the fit better? For people who are working, let's say in a transitional work job, they could talk about either one. I mean, it doesn't matter because they may be looking to move on. Same thing for a competitive job. They might be working something to make ends meet, but they're looking to move on and their work goal is something different. So they can answer either of these questions. This is a narrative, so we want to sit down and give people 5 to 10 minutes to write about this. One thing that's important to note is that in the past, when we've done this, some veterans who've gone through CBTw, even at this point, session 11, they have a lot of trouble thinking about this one. They've never been in a situation where they could think about what's most ideal for them. They've usually had to take a job just for income, to pay the rent, to put food on the table, or because they just had to take what was open to them. And so this can be a tricky one. And as facilitators, we can assist with working people through this a little bit. But first, start out by giving people time. You don't have to say that. Sometimes I preface it with, this can be hard to think about, but give it a try. You don't have to. And then just be open. And then when people are done, give them a chance to talk about theirs or share, and then just use your basic reflection skills. And there's no right or wrong answer for any of these. Definitely don't place a judgment on that or tell them what their capabilities and limitations are. I mean, you may know them, especially at this point, very well and have a good understanding. So you might choose to share something that they've shared before that they viewed as a capability or a limitation, or what the right job fit might be. But be very careful not to pass judgment here, or tell them like, oh no, that's not a good job fit for you because you have a physical limitation that might make that kind of physical work difficult. Don't do that. Be really open-minded here. And again, our goal is just to reflect and help them further think about and have insights about themselves, not to tell them what's right or wrong specifically for them. All right, and so our next section is maintaining motivation to work. Obviously, for this population, this can be a big one, and this is maintaining our internal drive towards some goal, in this case, an employment goal. Just like for all of us, like in order to keep working and keep doing what we're doing day to day, we have to pay attention to our motivation. For people with SMI who have, difficulty with low motivation, often this can be a tricky thing. So anyways, there's some education here on what this means, as well as some barriers to motivation, mental health symptoms like stressors and difficult situations, competing life demands, unhealthy thinking, dissatisfaction with the job, or other job-related factors. So we have a small question to think about and discuss here that you can discuss as a group, or if you have time, you can leave people a couple minutes to jot some things down here, or to just think. Again, it's important that everyone at least have a chance to reflect on themselves and to think about what this means for them. So next week, when we're talking about a work success plan, knowing some factors that help and hurt our motivation is going to be important for that plan. So, and then again, you would give people a chance to discuss briefly, and you would again use your reflective skills, use that first person reflection, listen for those thoughts, use those thinking words, as well as those behavioral patterns that people might know. Like they might say, well, working with a bunch of other people, that hurts my motivation because I don't really get along with others at work. So you could reflect that as a behavioral pattern, or other kinds of things. And then lastly, we have our 4 A's to address unhealthy thinking that harms our motivation. So this is 4 A's for motivation. On page 106, we have our entire model, and then we have an example underneath each of these numbers. I get a Social Security check every month, so there's no reason to try to work even if I wanted to. And then it goes through each of these. It goes through assess, it goes through answer, it goes through act, and then it goes through accept. These aren't, of course, the perfect answers to all of this, but this is one example that you can go through with the group. We also have our fillable PDF here with another example, But if you have time, allowing each veteran an opportunity to sit and think, or ideally, if they have their manuals, to write in here their own example would be helpful. If you're running short on time and you choose to do a group example, please have them go through their own example. You may note that someone in the group, you note that they have problems with motivation, or they've already talked about it with the group. You might see, if no one volunteers, if you could use their example. And then go through it with the group and have the group fill in each of these steps rather than you as the facilitator doing it. So in other words, it would be a group exercise where they would go through each of these steps. If you know that right now people may have low motivation related to income, or low motivation related to getting back out there given the pandemic or other factors, then you could maybe say, like, hey, so-and-so, do you mind if we use your example that you've shared with us a lot, that sometimes it's hard to keep that motivation up. This is also a place for normalization. Motivation is something that we all struggle with, no matter what we're doing. All of us, facilitators, veterans, everyone. Motivation is something that we all have to manage over time to continue doing what we're doing with our vocation or with our job. So go through this example. If you have time, have veterans write their own. Otherwise, go through it as a group and have them generate each of these. And then finally, we have some other tips to maintain motivation to work. A lot of this fits in the ACT part of the 4 A's. So we're doing actions to help support that healthier thinking to maintain that motivation. Making a list of pros and cons of working, keeping a work journal. These can just be reflections, thoughts, feelings, impressions, perspectives on work. It's kind of like a work story, and this helps people reflect on themselves and have insight. It can help document progress, like where you started and how far you've come. It could be anything that's helpful to a person. Setting goals and updating them periodically. Also writing down those goals, and this is similar to number 2. Making a work to-do list that includes the tasks you need to do throughout the workday. That helps all of us, and then we can mark those off and feel good about having achieved those as we go. If you're searching for a job, making a list of the things that you need to do and resources that you might need to get that done. And then if you're searching for a job, like thinking about the characteristics of the perfect job in order to work with your voc rehab specialist or voc rehab counselor, being able to communicate some of those things about what a good job fit might look like and what you might prefer to do is helpful. And then involve your people. If you have people who are supportive, if you don't, then it doesn't make sense to involve them. For our veterans, and they don't always have supportive people who want them to work. Sometimes they have people who say, you're too sick to work, or you shouldn't work. And they're not in favor of them doing that. So, but if they have people they can count on, tell them about your goals and why you're interested in working. And if they're supportive, that can really help you to maintain and achieve those goals. So, and then the take home is trying one strategy that we discussed this week, or something we didn't discuss, but somebody really wants to try, or they found helpful for their motivation, and trying it out. For example, make a list of the benefits of working, write down your work goals as specifically as possible, or tell someone close to you about your work plans, like someone you can count on who is supportive, and write down what happened when you tried those things. Overall, as you can see, there's a lot of content to deliver, and there's a lot of narrative opportunities. We want veterans to have the opportunity to share, to explore, to talk about themselves, rather than just hear us read all of these things. If you're running late or time is running short, you can just hit some of the highlights on these tips to increase motivation to work on 108 and 109. You don't have to go through the full list, and you can just orient people to that so they can take a look. For those who just don't have their manuals, or it's unlikely that they're going to take a look at that during the week, I like to just highlight some of the big ones that we haven't already talked about in this intervention, that may be unique, that I want to emphasize. The most important things here, though, are these didactic exercises and those narratives, that people have a chance to do those to the extent possible and that they have a chance to share that with the group. It's a lot here, and the pacing of the session and paying attention to that's going to be really important in order to get through this. And this sets us up for session 12, which is making that work success plan, and knowing what elements or what factors people want to focus on, because that's going to be specific and unique to each individual veteran. So that's why session 11 kind of sets us up for that. I hope things go well, and you have a good sort of last couple of sessions here. And thanks again for all your work. Bye.